Hello, my name is Will Perkins, Managing Director of SE Controls, and today I am representing the Smoke Control Association. So the Smoke Control Association is the trade association for all stakeholders who work in the smoke control industry, and I'll be presenting today taking an in-depth look at product testing, certification and compliance, focusing on the system of declarations of performance. Dame Judith Hackett's independent review of building regulations and fire safety identified weaknesses in the system for construction product testing, while acknowledging that the system that covers product testing, labelling and marketing is at least as complicated as the entire regulatory system, and that significant further work is needed to create a comprehensive regime that ensures that all products used in construction are properly tested and certified. Construction product certification is ultimately about satisfying stakeholders that when called upon to do so, the product will perform as it was designed to importantly in the environment it was expected to operate in. Over the last 3 decades, delegates from the Smoke Control Association have contributed to the development of a family of product standards that allow these stakeholders' needs to be met. The BSEN 12101, so that's BSEN 12101 series of standards, were developed within the CEN framework and harmonised under the Construction Products Regulation, the CPR. Importantly, all construction products must be certified to their relevant harmonised European norm, EN, in accordance with the Construction Products Regulation. Now, since Brexit, that is still mandatory, and it is referred to as the Construction Products Amendment EU Exit Regulation. Products in the UK will eventually be certified via a UKCA mark, in Northern Ireland via a C mark and the UKNI mark. Until that point, though, a product carrying a C mark accompanied with a declaration of performance, very important, I'll be talking about this later on. So a C mark product accompanied with a declaration of performance is acceptable in the UK. Now, an important point. The membership of the Smoke Control Association requires that only 12101 certified products are used by members. This commitment is audited as part of our UCAS accredited SDI 19 installer scheme, which is also a compulsory requirement of SCA membership. One of the critical key principles that underpins the CEN European Product Standards Development approach is the capture of what experts in the specific industry sector consider to be the essential characteristics, again, really important, essential characteristics of that product. So by distilling the product performance down to a series of functions which can be independently tested and measured against consistent criteria, the products can be certified and importantly directly compared with other products of the same type. This critical, directly comparable data is verified by independent approved bodies. The testing undertaken to establish the values that a manufacturer can declare against the essential characteristics are set out in each BSEN, European standard, and are obviously repeatable between test laboratories to provide consistency. So each standard contains an annex. At the back, it's called an Annex ZA, which sets out a table of these essential characteristics, and the manufacturer makes their declaration of performance of their product against this table, and importantly, nothing more. You can't add or take away. You must declare against that table only. This approach to construction product standardization is well established, and if used correctly can be very effective. But transparent third-party product testing and certification is only part of the solution. If the construction industry is to answer the observations raised by the Hackett report, then accurate and detailed product specifications must be delivered by design teams. In order for a design intent to be satisfied by the correct product selection, then it is fundamental and obvious that the product specification should include the critical functional requirements to meet the design intent. But so often this is not the case. How often do we see kitchen sink specifications that can easily lead to incorrect product selection? That is why the industry needs to collectively and urgently adopt the gateway approach set out in the Building Safety Act. All stakeholders should insist on the preparation of a detailed fire safety specification before construction begins, and all parties should be aware of the granular level of detail of each fire safety product. This potentially should include the intended location of the product, which is very relevant to ensure critical interfaces are correctly addressed. Key functional requirements specific to the product are captured. So we can now start to explore how a designer can use essential characteristics to develop a functional specification as part of that fire safety strategy. Every manufacturer or company placing the product on the market should be able to easily understand the design intent and demonstrate compliance through the issuing of their declaration of performance. You'll hear that referred to more commonly as a DOP. Importantly, by making a DOP, the manufacturer is assuming legal responsibility for the conformity of the construction product with its declared performance. And DOPs must be publicly available. And this is really important because this is the legal underpinning of the performance and compliance of construction products. Every product is classified by its importance to health and safety and on the particular nature of the product process for the product. So for instance, a casement window will have a lower classification than a natural smoke and a heat exhaust ventilator, as the latter is more critical to the safety of occupants in an emergency. This classification is known as the System of Assessment and Verification of Constancy of Performance, AVCP, and is applied to define the degree of involvement of third parties in assessing the conformity of the product according to the relevant technical specifications. So to achieve this, the CPR, the Construction Products Regulation, uses 5 main elements. The first, factory production control on the basis of documented, permanent and control of production in accordance with the relevant harmonised technical specifications. 2, initial inspection of the manufacturing plant and of the factory production control. 3, importantly, continuous surveillance, assessment and evaluation of the factory production control. 4, determination of the product type on the basis of type testing, type calculation, tabulated values or descriptive documentation of the product. And finally, 5, audit testing of samples taken before placing the product on the market. The 5 systems of AVCP and the level of involvement of approved bodies in each is as follows. And this is very important because it is determined by the importance of the product to life safety. So, in reverse order, System 4 is a manufacturer's tasks only. And AVCP System 3 is determination of the product type by a notified testing body, testing laboratory. AVCP System 2 Plus, is factory production control certification with continuous surveillance by a notified factory production control certification body. System 1, product certification comprising the issue of a certificate of constancy of performance with determination of the product type and continuous surveillance by a notified product certification body. And finally, AVCP System 1 Plus, which is the highest level, is a product certification comprising the issuing of a certificate of constancy of performance with determination of the product type, continuous surveillance and audit testing by a notified product certification body. So if we look through a worked example. Okay, if we continue with the example of a casement window. Such a product has an AVCP level 3. However, if that same casement window was automated by installing an actuator on it, and it was to be used as a natural smoke and heat exhaust ventilator, then the manufacturer, i.e. the company placing that product on the market, would need to test the complete window and the actuator assembly together to BSEN 12101 Part 2. This is because a natural smoke and heat exhaust ventilator is a different product and as such has a higher AVCP requirement. Actually, it has level 1 as opposed to a casement window on its own, which is level 3. Therefore, the manufacturer needs an approved body to issue them with a certificate of constancy of performance before the manufacturer can issue that declaration of performance containing those essential characteristics set out in Annex ZA of BSEN 12101 Part 2. With this basic understanding of how the product testing and certification works, we can now look at a typical example of a smoke ventilation system to be installed into a high-risk residential building, such as a multi-occupancy dwelling. Under the approved document B, there may be a need for a smoke ventilation system to protect the common stairs and offer additional protection to corridors or lobbies, typically subject to travel distances. The approved document requires the escape corridor to be ventilated by an automatic opening vent at the end of the corridor, ventilating directly to the outside of the building or into a vertical shaft. The applicable product standard for the automatic opening vent to the end of the corridor is BSEN 12101 Part 2, 2003. Natural smoke and heat exhaust ventilators, or NSHEVs. The applicable product standard for the automatic opening vent to the vertical smoke shaft is BSEN 12101 Part 8, smoke control dampers. The approved document, ADB, requires the head of the common stairs to be ventilated by an automatic opening vent to BSEN 12101 Part 2. And the power supplies to the system should be certified to EN 12101 Part 10. If the system was a mechanical smoke ventilation system, for example, then the applicable product standard for the extract fan would be EN 12101 Part 3, powered smoke and heat exhaust control ventilators. So just in that description alone, you can see there is a whole family of EN 12101 standards that cover the critical life safety, fire safety products for a smoke ventilation smoke control system. So if we now drill down into the specific functional requirements of one of those products, we can demonstrate why it's important that the fire safety specification includes product specifications that use the essential characteristics. So using the example of an automatic opening vent at the end of the corridor, the design team should specify a performance that will ensure the product that is installed will open when signaled to do so and achieve a free area performance in accordance with the approved document. This free area performance is a declarable essential characteristic of the NSHEV and is a measure of its effectiveness to exhaust smoke. It's expressed as the product's aerodynamic free area, and in this instance, an NSHEV being used as an automatic opening vent, AOV, at the end of corridor in a high-rise residential building has a recommended aerodynamic free area of 0.9 square meters, according to the Smoke Control Association's guidance on smoke control in apartment buildings. The procurement team in our project can now make sure that any product put forward will meet the functional requirements of this specific application by simply requesting the declaration of performance from the manufacturer, in the full knowledge that this will be underwritten by an approved body, with the manufacturer having a legal responsibility under the CPR to make sure that the declaration of performance is current and accurate. On delivery, site-centric declarations of performances will be issued for the specific products, which will provide full traceability through the factory production control process. This will provide a route to further key information such as COBie data, including materials and reaction to fire classification, fiery data in accordance with new BS 8644, and maintenance information. It is critical that this information and all interactions is captured digitally and included in the golden thread. This will provide the building operator and stakeholders with the key information they need to make sure the products will be ready to operate when called upon to do so. So, in conclusion, the product testing and certification framework for smoke control products is well established, and if used by informed stakeholders, can provide the safety and security that building occupants expect and deserve. But too often, the current construction process is fragmented. The Building Safety Act recognises this and is trying to address it for fire safety products through its gateway process. The biggest challenge facing the construction industry now is how it works together to rise to the challenges that has been set by government. So thank you for your time. I hope this has been informative, and please forward any questions to the Smoke Control Association and I will endeavour to answer them. Thank you.
Hi Will, thank you for presenting your session on smoke control for this year's Fire By Live. It's great to have you involved and the support from the Smoke Control Association. As an event supporter and a speaker, what made you want to support Fire By Live this year? It's important that the whole industry has got to raise our bar. The whole construction industry, and the Smoke Control Association is a small part of that. So any and every quality opportunity we have to kind of spread the message and inform and explain, we have to take it because we've got to change this industry together. Well, it's great to have you here, and we're happy to help support that message as well. So just going back to your presentation, you spoke about how we must meet building standards and have clarity pre-construction. Is the government tackling this through the gateway process? Yeah, 100%. The gateway process is an integral part of new legislation, the Building Safety Act, and the first bit of legislation has been enacted. The gateway process, whilst it isn't the first gateway was set out in that first part of legislation. The secondary legislation for the Act, which includes importantly Gateway 2 and Gateway 3, and the building and the need for a golden thread of information through the construction process, that is likely to be enacted in probably September, October this year. So we've got to be ready for it, because it will be the law. We won't have a choice. Definitely something that I think everyone can safely say is needed. So for manufacturers who may be watching today, how can they demonstrate compliance for their products, and how might building owners or developers find evidence of their DOPs?
In the first instance, if a manufacturer is placing a product on the market and there is a harmonized standard for that product, they can't not certify. It is illegal for them to sell a product that isn't certified. So if they haven't and they're selling a product, straight away find out which laboratory or certification organization is able to offer that testing. A lot of SCA members use IFC because they are accredited to most of the EN 1201 series. So they need to approach that certification body and they need to get their products tested as quickly as possible. And once they've got that, then, as I think I explained earlier, they would be in a position to make their DOP, their Declaration of Performance, publicly available. So typically via their website would be the easiest and most logical place to find it.
Great. And you also spoke about the necessity of certification, etc. How does competency come into play when it comes to smoke control? And is this a big challenge that our industry is facing?
It's huge, and it's something again that came out of the Hackett review, was this real lack of competency and the ability to prove competency in the industry, throughout the construction industry. So the Smoke Control Association very quickly rose to that challenge, and we mentioned quite early on in the piece that we developed and introduced the SDI 19 approved installer program. And again, this is a third party scheme which is underwritten by UCAS, which is the national sort of certification body. And so we have that third party scheme in place, and therefore I would stress that if anybody is thinking or has the need to design or install or get a smoke control system, smoke ventilation system installed, they only use competent third-party accredited organisations using the SDI 19 scheme.
The industry definitely has to nurture that competency culture. You also spoke about an automatic ventilation windows or systems in stairwells for multi-occupancy buildings. What would this typically be connected to for it to be automated? So, for example, is it connected to fire alarms or smoke alarms, or is this even smart technology? In
its simplest form, most systems will be triggered by some kind of smoke detection, but importantly, often there is not a fire alarm system required in a building, and equally these systems aren't required to operate off a fire alarm system. So in that respect, they are often, and quite rightly, a dedicated standalone system which will have their own means of detection and typically override through what's called a manual control point. These are typically, you'd see it as a call point in a building. If they're orange, then that's for smoke ventilation. So it's quite a standalone, typically it's a standalone system with its own form of detection and certification to the relevant standards there. On more complex buildings, then where there typically will be a fire alarm system, then it is often that fire alarm system will be used as the trigger for the system. But again, more complex systems need more logic for the system to operate under different cause and effects. And so that it's important that cause and effect, control of the cause and effect, is within the smoke control system, but the fire alarm would simply provide initiation.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarity. If anybody has any further questions, please reach out to the Smoke Control Association booth. This can be found in the exhibitors section of Fire by Life platform, and you can speak to a member of the team. Thank you. Thank you, Will.
Thank you very much. Thanks.